Pat McCart, he's been turning a three-footed bowl for a hot minute, and he's kind of mastered it. He teaches all over the area.
Now?
It's 7 o'clock. So we're going to turn the time over to our wonderful Pat, and he will take it away.
Okay. Does everybody have a cell phone? Or anybody got a cell phone? If you do, could you please turn it off so it doesn't go off?
Just so it doesn't distract other people. And secondly, if I could have Wayne Wells and Mike Boyer.
Yeah, I know. And these guys don't know why they're coming up. So I'm going to award these guys the first ever Model Member Award. And so when I make a bowl, I think about it for a long time. And I turn it and I think about the person that I want to give it to. And I made this bowl for Mike Boyer because, and the criteria to be the model member was, I want to make sure I read it. It was, you have to be generous with your time. You have to be active and a productive turner. And you have to be committed to the craft and the community. And I think both of these guys model that to the T. So I made Mike that bowl, and I made Wayne this bowl. Wayne gave me this piece of wood, and you'll notice it's a round bottom bowl, and it was a piece of oak, and it was the absolute one of the most miserable pieces of wood I've ever had to turn. But I had a good time, so Wayne, that is yours. So
thank you.
Give these guys a hand.
Thank you. I did not want to turn it.
That's
I
it.
didn't want anything to do with it.
Thank you.
I didn't want it either. Okay, so my good friend Larry Miller says you always start a meeting off with a joke. So here's my joke. Why do pigs make terrible drivers? Because they hog the road. Oh, don't worry, my turning is better than my jokes. So, the last time I demonstrated, I talked way too much. And one of my good friends, Eric Lofstrom, and a lot of you guys know him, was there. And I went out to lunch with him a few days later, and I said, Eric, what'd you think? He goes, well, Pat, how many points did you try and give? I said, I probably tried to give out at least 10 good points. He said, stick to 3. So I'm going to stick to 3. Tonight I'm going to show you how to cut a bowl, how to cut the feet in it, and how to sand it and put finish on it. So those 3 things, cutting, sanding, and finishing. And then my other great suggestion and comment came from my other good friend, Terry Broberg. And Terry said, Pat, I thought we were going to learn how to put 3 feet on the bottom of the bowl. And when he said that, I realized I really missed the point of my last meeting. So tonight I am going to make sure that you know where to put those feet, how to cut them, and why you put them where I suggest you put them. So, does everybody have a handout? Okay, good. Oh, yeah, I've got a few more. I got 50. I printed 50 of them, so make sure you get one. And I want to pass out so you guys can kind of see a sample of what I do. Here. I'm just gonna do me a favor, open that up. Okay, just pass those around the meeting, and those are fairly good examples of what I do, although just on a smaller scale. And I think all of those have 3 feet on them. And if you look on the bottom of them, I put the type of wood, my name, the number of the bowl, and the year that I do it in. Okay? Yes, Ed?
One for the camera or the Zoom audience.
What?
A bowl for the camera or the Zoom audience. So that the people online can see.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay, this. Sure. Okay. I don't know if you can probably see the 3 feet on it. And there's my name, the type of wood, the number of the bowl, and the year it was made in. I'll show you this one later too. So that's what I do.
Is that like the number of total bowls you've made?
Say again?
Is that like the number of total bowls?
Yes. Yeah. The number of bowls that I have finished, complete, and signed. I've turned some that I haven't signed and just given away, and then I've turned some that have blown up, and so it happens. Okay, I'm gonna go through. Where's Ramon? There he is. Ramon, if you could pull up the PowerPoint. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, when we get the PowerPoint up, I'm gonna explain. It should, okay, yeah, this is just more of my sample work. I do bowls, platters. You can see this was the one I just showed. Next. I've done a bunch of tops. I've turned about 500 tops. It's a great practice item to make. Next. I've done about 20 miniature urns. These are about 4 inches tall. I make them in groups of 4 or 5. A lot of people now that get cremated want some of their ashes to go to their kids or whatever. That's what the little bottle is for. You put the ashes in the bottle and put the bottle in the urn. Next. Some natural straight edge pieces. Next. Did a 3-tier hollow form, monkey puzzle, myrtle. Next. And then I try and work with just beautiful wood. Life's too short to turn just plain wood. Next. Okay, so, go off of that one for a second. A great quote from a really good turner, Mike Mahoney: if the wood is pretty, keep it simple. That's what I do. I keep it very simple shapes, nothing fancy. I don't do hardly any embellishment. I'm not really artistic, so I just let the wood try and do what the wood does. And then it's always better than anything I can do. So I'm going to go over the 5 steps so go ahead. Okay, I start, this is a half round, it's only about 4 inches thick. It's going to be this piece. Next. Okay, I flip it over. I take a, what do they call it? Forstner bit, thank you. In the center, and that way I go through the bark so that the 4-pronged dry spur has something to dig into. If you just put it in the bark and you get a small catch, it'll strip the bark out. Next. Cut it round, and you'll notice the lines I put on it. I'll explain that in a little bit. Next. And then I mount it between centers, and I turn the outside shape with the tenon. Next. And then I turn it back around, chuck it up in the 4-jaw chuck, turn the inside out, and I rough it out to about 1 inch thick. Then I let it dry for a while. Okay? And yes?
Is that a sanding pad for pressure?
That's a worn out sanding pad that I took. In fact, I'll show it to you. I've got it. It's a worn out sanding pad that the hook and loop was all gone on it. Yeah. Okay. So the hook and loop was all gone on it. So I just wrapped some electrical tape around it so it fit right into the live center on the tailstock. Like that. Then I can press against it and it'll get the bowl nested right on the foot, and the tenon will grab a hold. If you just try and hold it up there, sometimes it'll be off a little bit. I want to make sure it's all the way nested against the jaws of the chuck. So that's what I use. I don't know if you can see it. Okay. Now, okay, in your handout, you can go ahead and go off that in a moment. In your handout, there's, in fact, there's my 5 tips, an asterisk, and an exclamation point. Okay, so these are my 5 tips for any wood turner. Whether you're new, whether you've been turning for a long time, but mostly for new people. The first thing I suggest everybody do, clean your shop. Why? Why clean your shop? Heck, it chips, you know. You drop one of the jaws or one of the screws from your chuck in a pile of chips, you're going to spend an hour looking for it. Also, if you go out in your shop or your workspace, I'll just call it your workspace, and there's chips and stuff all over and it's all cluttered, I know I got really anxious when I did that. And my wife, bless her soul, she said, you know, if you just clean up a little more, it would work out fine. And it did. I started cleaning up before I go in at night, and it made a world of difference. So I highly recommend, and I know that every time I give a demonstration, I tell people to clean their shop. I go home and I clean my shop even more because, you know, I don't want to be a hypocrite. So, clean your shop. Okay, next suggestion I have, buy one quality tool. My grandpa Harold had Haroldisms. You buy a good tool once, and a good tool is always worth the price, but a cheap tool never is. So those are 2 Haroldisms you can take. Okay, if you buy a quality tool, you might want to buy a sharpening jig. I would recommend it. If you're going to spend $76 on a D-Way bowl gouge, half-inch bowl gouge, you want it to last as long as possible. If you have a sharpening jig, you barely have to take any material off because you're going back to the same angle, back to the same distance, the same stick out, and you're only taking off tens of a thousandths of an inch. If you try and learn to sharpen freehand, you're going to take that $76 gouge and you're going to reduce the life by probably a tenth of what it was because it just takes time to learn how to sharpen freehand. With a jig, it's really easy. So I would suggest you get a jig. The next one is practice on green wood. Green wood is easier on your tools, doesn't make as much dust, and chances are it's free. And if you're smart and you came to the wood auction, you got a bunch of green wood, or if you're really smart and hook up with Doug, sorry Doug, that guy, if you hook up with Doug Reynolds and get in the wood rat, you get first pick at some of the best wood out there. So talk to Doug about getting in that. Okay? And a lot less dust. Okay. And then 5th, join the AAW. It's not cheap, but it's a fabulous organization to belong to. They put on world-class symposiums, and they send out a magazine I think it's every 2 months, and it has pictures in it that are just fabulous. My goal is to someday have my picture in that thing. Another one is the club has a lot of really good resources. John Howard over there sells some fantastic stuff. So I strongly recommend you try out the sanding paper we have. Try out the glue that we have. It's going to be cheaper over there than it is anywhere else. Okay? YouTube videos. They're terrific. And there's hundreds of them. I know the first time I wanted to do a demonstration, I went online to see how many people, you know, if there was anybody else that did 3-footed bowls. There was 37 videos on 3-footed bowls, so I guess I figured I wasn't the first one.
Dad,
Huh?
I saw Phil Anderson, the Shady Acres guy, Walmart the other day.
Oh, did you? Good.
Shady Acres, you know.
Yeah. And,
He's in body money.
oh, good. And then another thing, what did I do with that book? Oh, there it is. 500 wooden bowls. If you're lacking for an inspiration, man, there's so much stuff in here. Just fabulous. Now, a lot of them aren't real bowls. You know, a lot of them are very, very artistic bowls, but a lot of them are just not real nice bowls too. So good inspiration for idea right there. Okay, and now we're down to the asterisk or whatever, and the exclamation point. The asterisk or whatever is have fun. If you're miserable out in your shop, you might be doing something wrong. Figure it out. If you're struggling to make a cut, your tools might be dull, or you might have crappy wood or whatever, but have fun. It is a fun hobby. And the exclamation point, be safe. If you think something's going wrong, stop. Figure out what's going wrong and then go on. Wear your safety glasses. Don't turn in bare feet. Don't turn crappy wood unless you're a good turner, because you don't want that crappy piece of wood coming off. And last but not least, wear a face shield. I've got a face shield. And to make sure that you could hear me, I cut the bottom off. And hopefully you guys can still hear me. So when you do turn, wear at least safety glasses, preferably a face shield. Okay, so that's my 5 tips, an asterisk and an exclamation point for every turner. Okay, now you've all got a handout, right? One question I get a lot is, okay, why 3 feet, Pat? I do 3 feet for a couple of obvious reasons. 1, it always sits flat. 2, it's kind of unique. When people look at the bottom, they go, oh, that's a little different. And to me, the bottom is just as important as the inside. So that's one reason, a couple of reasons why I do the 3 feet. Okay. Now, okay, we already showed the rough out. Okay, I've already got the roughed out bowl mounted here. Any questions so far? And if you have a question, just raise your hand, go like that, and I'll stop and I'll try and repeat your question and then answer it for you. So do we have any questions so far? Good. Okay. Well, let's get started. Okay. This was a piece of maple that I got at the wood auction, and I think I paid 20 bucks for the whole pile. And I've got a couple other pieces that I also turned from the wood auction. It's a good place to get cheap wood. So, I always start with the back side. I'm going to true it up, just make sure it's true. Oh, that's pretty true. If this was wobbling, I would true it all up. I'm going to look at it and, you know what, I don't even need to hardly hit the outside. I just turned this the other day, so I know it's still true. So I'm not even going to touch the outside. At this point, I would sand this side completely. Okay? And then I'd come around here, and now that it's roughed out and, cured for a while, I would make sure that my tailstock doesn't hit, or my tool rest doesn't hit. I went over to Wayne Wells' house one time, and he had a real nice natural edge piece like this, and he was having a little trouble at the bottom. I'll come over and help. And I did this. I put the tool rest in there, got it nice and close, turned the lathe on, and broke his bowl because I had gotten too close. So make sure it turns. And I always try and turn it backwards like that, because if you go that way, you're not going to get caught. If you go this way, you could get your fingers caught in there. So I always try and turn it that way. Okay? Okay. I use, this is my favorite, second favorite tool. It's just a wooden handle, a D-way blade, 1/2-inch bowl gouge. I use a fingernail grind on it. I don't know if you can see that. Okay? Now, when you're going to start and you're going to enter the wood, you want to point the bevel straight into the wood, and you want to make a little groove. And that little groove will give your bevel some place to ride. And I say ride, not rub, because you don't want to press hard on it. So let's see if we can make a cut. Okay. Hang on. And a bowl this size, I would turn on the slower speed. And it's pretty easy to switch. I'll turn it at about that's just over 1,000 RPM. Okay, I'm going to anchor bevel cut, ABC. You'll hear that over and over and over in wood turning. Anchor bevel cut. You anchor the tool on the tool rest. You rub the bevel on the wood, then you make the cut. Okay, I like to add D, direction. The flutes point in the direction you're cutting. E, effort. If you're having to push into that wood, stop, you're doing something wrong. Sharpen your tool, figure out why it's making it so hard to cut. And then S, A, B, C, D, E, S, shavings. If you're getting dust, your tool's probably dull. If you're getting shavings, you're doing something right. So remember those letters for each and every cut. Now, I'm going to find the wood with the bevel, and you'll hear it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to rub it. You hear that? Then I'm going to come off the wood. I'm going to move in 1/8 of an inch. Can you see that little groove that's starting to show up? Once I see a little groove start to show up, I rotate the bevel around, or I rotate the flute open. And make a cut. Now you're probably wondering, well, why doesn't he go a little further? Why doesn't he go all the way down? If you want to turn something thin, you got to turn it a little bit, like 1 inch or 1.5 inches at a time. Because once you get really thin and you get past that inch, it starts to open up and flex on you. And you can't go back and make it true. You've got to work your way down. So that's why I'm just doing it in little sections. And I will usually take it down to where I'm getting solid wood all the way around. Yes? Oh, you're right. Thank you, Chris. Any other questions or suggestions? That was a good one. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to take it down a couple more steps. And I am looking with one eye on the inside and one eye on the outside. I'm trying anyway. So you want to try and look and see that you're going down evenly so you get a nice consistent wall thickness. And I got my arm out a little bit too far. Usually I would move it down here so I could get around on this side. But You want to try and keep the tool in next to your body. I try and keep it up against my vibration dampener, and it works great. So I'll pick that cut back up. Okay, I'm almost to my final cut. Now I have a special tool that I make almost all my final cuts with. And this is Bob. This tool was given to me by Bob Sweezy's wife, Nancy, who I see about every other day now. This was his personal tool. He was the gentleman that started what would then become D-Way tools and would eventually become D-Way Boxmaster. So this is the one I make my final cuts with. And then just a beautiful handle. I don't know if you can see that handle. So. And somebody asked, well, why Bob? Why do you? Because Bob just always cuts great for me. And he saves me so many times. Got off the bevel a little bit. Okay, at this point I would stop and just check and see if I'm nice and even. I've got some calipers. It's a little thicker on the very outside edge, but I'm not going to mess with it now. It's not that much different. So I'm down to just over 1/4 of an inch. And I'm down to almost good wood all the way around. I'm just going to go a little bit further with Bob. And I'm just going to pick this cut up right there. Okay, any questions so far?
What's your grind?
It's a fingernail grind, 45 degrees. I use one of they're called a Raptor tool. I didn't bring it with me, but that's how I set the distance and stuff. And I took a piece of paper, I folded it in half, folded that in on an angle to get a 45, and I folded that again to get a 22.5 degree, and that's what I set my sharpening jig at. And it came out to 45. I don't know why. Okay, so any other questions on that? Okay, let's keep going. See, it doesn't take long to cut wood. Okay, find the wood, there's the wood, come off the wood. Now, to know if you're rubbing the bevel or not, if you can see light in between the tip and the back heel of the cut, if you can see light, you're not rubbing the bevel. If you can't see light and there's full contact, then you're rubbing the bevel. I don't know, can you? Let's see if I can. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go in like that, because that's all just the tip and no bevel support, and it would do, not a good cut. If you're rubbing the bevel, that limits the amount of depth that your tool and the depth of the cut of the tool. So if you rub the bevel and steer from back here, Bring that handle around. When I started, my handle was here, right there. When I'm done, my handle will be way over here. So you've got to make that full swing. Now, I could do it with this, all of it, but I just like this tool. So I've got a little bit of a line right here, right there. That's where I'm going to pick the cut up, right there. So I take that tool mark line out. And what happened there is I got in, and you can see it, it caught this lower edge, and I got some tear out right there. That's because I was just trying to take a little bit too much wood. So I'm going to go back. Let's make sure my thickness is still good. These are probably two of the best calipers you're going to find. You know, once you have felt enough of them, you can tell if it's getting thick or thin. So let's go ahead and keep going. Okay, 1200. Rub the bevel. Okay, and it's starting to get to be a pretty thick cut, so I'm just going to come back and take some of that center out. Not all of it. And that, take another cut. I don't know if you can notice, but the cut is getting a little bit louder. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not. That's because this tool is starting to get dull. How many of you would have sharpened your tool by now? A couple. Everybody should have. I would probably sharpen my tools on the outside about 3 times at least. If you're going through bark, you're going to sharpen even more because bark is hard on the tools. So I'm going to switch to another tool and get a good cut. Maybe I will. Yes. That and you mean these here?
No, right on the banjo itself.
Right here? Yeah, that was that one big catch earlier. So.
On the tool rest.
Tool rest.
Yeah, see that dust that's on there?
Below your finger.
Below your toe.
Oh,
Wipe it off.
So you just knocked it off there.
what does?
The ones that did look like shape.
Okay, well, I guess I'll just use Bob.
Hey, Pat,
Yes.
do you ever use a bottom gouge?
You mean a bottom feeder tool? Yeah, I do, quite often, to go across the bottom. It has a lot blunter angle on the bevel, so that you can get in there a little better. And I'm still struggling getting it to cut predictably. It cuts beautifully when it cuts, but I'm still struggling to figure out where it wants to cut at. So, oh, there they are. Hang on just a second.
And the bottom feeder cuts on a different part of the nose.
I didn't bring any bottom feeder tools with me, I don't think. No, I didn't. Okay. So we're gonna ditch the dull tool. Switch over to a sharp tool. Same tool, just a different handle. Any other questions?
So how many one good tool did you buy?
It's a one good tool. I've got, I think, four or five. But that's all I use. I do 95% of my turning with a bowl gouge. I turn all my wooden tops with a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge. I use some scrapers. Who doesn't? You know?
What about a skew?
Yeah. I'm actually getting good with it. No, well, I'm getting better. No, I'm not good yet. But a skew is a good tool to learn how to use. And if somebody gets good at it, like John, they're going to do a demonstration and show you how to use one. You ain't going to see it tonight. Okay. See, this is a lot shorter handle. And part of why that's getting loud is I'm hanging over the tool rest quite a ways. And let's just make sure we're not getting too thin. Okay, I could get a little thinner. Yeah.
Why don't you explain why you're using that so that it's open wider than the piece of wood is? Thick.
Oh, John, the question was, why am I showing that it's wider? Okay, so I find the thickest piece here, and that happens to be this edge, and I rub the outside, and then I can see how, how much difference there is in thickness. And you can see I've got about a 1/16 of an inch difference in thickness here. But if I get down to here, it's closed up. So I know I need to pick that cut up right there. And if I feel it, yeah, that's right where I need to pick that cut up. But I can also judge how much I need to take off when I get down to here. So I need to take off about 1/8 of an inch more. And if for some reason I really struggle with the cut, I'll pull out a scraper. Yes. I have a question in the back.
You're going for wall thickness.
Yes.
You're going for a straight thickness all the way down?
On a natural edge bowl, I'm shooting for a consistent, even thickness throughout the shape of the bowl. If I'm doing a flat rim bowl, like this one here, I'll bring it over. If I'm doing a flat rim bowl like this, you can see it's a flat rim. I have a thicker rim than I do the bowl. It's called a shadow rim. And the reason I do that is when you pick it up, it's easy to hang on to. Your thumb goes right there. If it was all the same thickness, your thumb could, you could slide off. And it just adds a nice effect, that shadow in there. Nice piece of wood. Huh? If you ever get a chance and Devin calls you up and says, hey, I've got some box elder or I've got some wood, take him up on it. Right, Devin? Where is Devin? Oh, there he is. He has been extremely generous with wood for the club, so thank you very much. Okay, I need to bring in my tool rest just a little bit.
Do you
Yes.
have like an S tool rest or anything in your home shop? Or?
No, I don't. I don't. Some people do. I don't.
Do you use a 12-inch tool rest on everything? Do you have a shorter one?
I don't have a shorter one. I'm cheap. I did buy one of the D-Way bars that you glue onto here, and it's made out of the same material that the tools are made out of. That way you won't get any dips or nicks in your tool rest, because that stuff is hard. It totally, Powermatic tool rests aren't the best. They're a little soft. You glue that rod on there with JB Weld long set, and it just changes your tool rest completely. So, any other questions?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. I was hoping for a bunch more questions, because this is going way too fast. Okay, rub the bevel. You want to press down on the tool rest, not into the wood. If you press too hard into the wood, you're going to get that speed bump, that brrrr, and it'll get worse and worse and worse. You can't press harder and get those out. You got to stop, go back, and cut them out. And if I get too much of this and I have trouble cutting it out, I'll get my scraper out. And yes, I did bring it with me. And when you get down near the center, you got to wait for the wood. If you try and rush the wood, you know, if I press too hard, it's going to not give me a good cut. You have to wait for the wood. And my tool rest is just a touch high. They say you should always turn off the lathe before you adjust the tool rest. And I put it past the center because I don't want to run off the end. Running off the end is very bad. Hey, I got a fly. Okay. You can see I got a little bit more to go. There we go. Okay. One more cut, and then I'm going to probably pull out the scraper. Yep. Ah, come on. At the center, you really have to wait for it, because a 12-inch bowl going 1,000 RPM, it's not that fast, in 1 second, 52 feet of surface goes past your tool. If you're in the very center, in 1 second, you might get 2-3 inches going past. So you have to wait for it. Okay? I rub along here. Check. It's fairly wet, yeah. Yes, in the back.
When you're doing that inside conversion from the wall to the bottom.
From here down to here?
Towards the bottom, yeah.
Yeah.
I get in a lot of cuts, but I inevitably get like tiny little tear outs. Just tiny little things that are just annoying.
Okay.
How can I avoid that?
How sharp is your tool?
Probably not sharp enough.
Okay, sharpen your tool, try it again. If that doesn't work, There's a couple of things you can do. You can wet the wood, and that swells the fibers up so they can cut cleaner. Especially if you use soapy water, you can get a cleaner cut. Yeah. But if I'm still having like little ridges or lines or something, I'll go ahead and break out the scraper. I heard.
The other thing that works is put a little walnut oil or finish on it.
Yeah, like John just said, another thing you can do, put a little walnut oil in there or a little finish to, again, swell the fibers up, fill them up, and then cut it again and you'll get a little bit cleaner cut. You can see I've got a couple little ridges right here, and then there's a little ridge right there. I would take my pencil, find it, and if you want to find a lump or a dip, instead of trying to find it with one finger, put 3 fingers together like that. It makes it so it makes it easier to find the lump. You go, oh, there it is right there. And if you're going to draw a line on a piece of wood like this, instead of going this way, go that way. The reason being is I'll just show you. Let me find it first. Right there. Make sure this is going right. If you go this way, the pencil wants to dip down and you never get a good line. But going that way, it just draws a better line. Yeah. Any other questions? The new guy's in. Where's the? Oh yeah, he did ask a question. In back. Yes.
You started with your tool right close to the tool rest, and then the further you got in, you raised your tool on your bowl, and then you came back down to the center. Is there a reason for that?
Can you repeat that?
Your tool rest, your tool on the tool rest.
Yeah.
You started straight, and then you raised it
Yep.
carefully about the center,
Yep.
and you came back down. Is
Yeah.
there a reason for that?
That's the way I was taught to do it. Why, I'm not 100% sure, other than I've always gotten a better cut. John, you got any answer for that question? No? It's just the way I was taught.
That's all I can say.
It is, and it's easier, I think, to maintain bevel contact.
Hey, Pat?
Yes.
Question.
Okay, the question was, his question was, when I made this cut, I start here, I drop the handle down, and then as I'm coming across, I raise the handle up. That was his question, and the question was why. I get a better cut, I don't know. And also I need to get to the center, and my tool rest was a little high, so I had to bring the handle up to get down to the center. Okay? But I always do it that way anyway.
Pat, it doesn't work to go the other way.
This way?
When you get to the center, if you're coming up to the center, the tool will grab and you'll put a little dimple in there rather than cut clean.
Did you hear his answer? Bob Severs has been turning for longer than some of us have been alive. So the guy's turned thousands of pieces. He's pretty good. So that's his answer, and I'll stick with it.
Do you want to repeat that answer for people online?
Sure. The answer was, Bob, say it again.
What?
If
your tip is below center, when you get to the center of the bowl,
down here,
it'll cut it'll grab a little bit, real easy, and put a dimple in there. If
Yeah.
you come down on it, that'll never happen.
yeah, if you come underneath and go up, it'll dig into the center there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna clean this up just a little bit with a scraper.
Pat, right
Yes,
now,
Joanne.
you've got a line, I
Uh-huh,
assume, right where the middle of the bump is.
yes.
Why not put it on each side in order to begin?
Good question. I never thought of that. Yes, Ed?
One of the things you taught me,
Yeah?
you only remove the high spot.
Yeah. And that's, I'm gonna remove the line, that's the high spot. So I wanna get rid of the high spot.
But it's not at a point.
My line?
Well, the high spot.
It's pretty close to a point. You know, it's a definite dip. Joanne was wondering why I didn't do something like this. Okay, find where the rise of the rib starts, or the high spot, and put a line there. And then come to where I want to run out of the cut, I'm assuming, and put another line there. Something like that, right? Okay, let's see what happens. Any other questions? Okay, this is a negative rake scraper, D-way tool, round. Any questions about this tool? Nope. Okay, so with the tool right up against my hip or my stomach, held flat on the tool rest. Okay, you can see, I'm way low. It is a negative rake, yeah. But I'm way too low, so raise the tool rest up. So with a scraper, you want to cut at or above center, and with a negative rake, you got to compensate for the negative part. So you can see I'm pretty close. A little bit high still, but not much. Okay. Yep. And I know I got a little bit of a ridge right here. And a little bit of a chatter. Okay. Okay, let's just check real quick. Okay. It's a consistent thickness, consistent enough for me. At this point, I would start to sand. Now, we're not going to do a lot of sanding, but there are some things about sanding that I want to let you know. Hang on, I'm looking to see if that's a crack. Say again?
Are you sanding here?
I do have a vacuum cleaner. I'm going to very, very little sand. But a couple of things I want to tell you about sanding. And it really comes into effect when we turn it around and do the feet. When you're sanding, you can see I've got some arrows on here. You want to sand off the wood. Woo! Sorry about that. You want to sand off the wood. So by that I mean the sanding motion is coming this way. I don't want to try and sand going that way, like that, because if I do and I get here, it's going to want to catch and come back around the corner, and you're going to wear this corner down round. If you're going off the wood, it'll keep this edge nice and crisp. So, and I don't sand a lot out here with the lathe turned on. I do a lot of sanding. Like, see, I got a tool mark right there. Okay, you can see that tool marks, well, maybe you can't see it. You can't see it. But there was a tool mark there that's just about gone now. Now, if this was a flat rim bowl, I could sand the whole thing with it spinning. With a natural edge bowl, you can only sand from the center up to the lowest part of the rim. You try and get much higher than that, it's going to want to catch and come around the corner, and you're going to break that edge off, or sand it off. So, I think you guys remember Eileen talking about sanding with the edge. I do the same thing. And I usually start with 180 until I get all the tool marks out. And you can see I got a tool mark right there. And that's a big enough tool mark. Huh? Do I sand in reverse? Yes, I sand both directions. And I sand on this side, the thing would be going this way, like that, up to here. On this side, I'd sand that way. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Okay, let's pretend this is all sanded. I mean, just, and this side's all sanded. Okay, we're all sanded. Okay, at this point, now it's time to turn it around. Okay, so now there's a couple of different ways of grabbing this. You can use a vacuum chuck. For the first 19 years, I didn't have a vacuum chuck. I just got one running, and there's some pluses and some minuses to a vacuum chuck. Some of the pluses are you can grab, almost any shape with it. Comes in all different sizes, and they are very strong. If you get the bottom of your bowl too thin, you will break the bottom, right, Brandy? Yep. So what I do is I have a big block of wood with a bunch of duct tape on, or not duct tape, double back tape on it. There we go. And I would take this and go right like that. Okay, and then I would take duct tape and put it on here and hold it. Now this one, I'd probably use the next size down because you want to register it at the very bottom, not just the outside edge. So this one's a little bit too big for this. I thought it would fit. So I'm going to use a different one. Okay. Excuse me. This is a piece of cherry that, oh, I got somebody's head.
Sorry.
That's okay. Let me harness this. Okay, go ahead and show this for a second. This is a, there we go, a piece of cherry that I got at the wood auction. And it's real nice, thin, natural edge. And I know this one's going to fit because I did it earlier. No, I'm going to do this one. Okay, so how do you center it up? I bring the tailstock up.
I'll let you kind of.
Yeah, let me get over there. I have a fold away for my, hang on. I gotta get a different grip on it. There we go. Okay, when I put things between centers, I use a cup center instead of a point. If you use a point and you're pressing into the very center, it wants to split the wood. If you use a cup, it's pressing a plug of wood into the, into the wood. So, I just use the center hole that's already there. Okay. And then I take duct tape and duct tape it on there. That way it never comes off. Well, until you want it to. Am I gonna what? Yeah, and I use mineral spirits to clean the tape off with afterwards.
Goat alternative, you can use gaffer tape, and you won't have to clean up any residue.
What kind? What kind?
Gaffer tape.
Okay. Okay. This was, how much is that stuff?
$35 a roll.
This was 2. $2 duck chuck. And, and that keeps it from flexing. All the duct tape you're trying to do is keep the thing from moving. The double back tape will keep it on there. The duct tape keeps it from shifting. They machine aluminum using double back tape. It'll hold aluminum when it's being cut on a machine. So if they can do it with aluminum, you can do it with wood.
Hey, Pat,
Yes.
how many cycles do you get out of your double-sided tape?
Probably 4 or 5. I used to work at Boeing, and Boeing used to have the Boeing surplus store. Thank God, it was a wonderful place. Right before they went out of business, I got a box full of double back tape. Partial rolls, full rolls, it didn't matter. It was good stuff, but I'm almost out. So there are some other tapes out there, but man, they're expensive.
I heard they're hiring again.
Not me. No, it was a great company to work for. And one more. Any questions on this part so far? Okay? That's probably good enough. Now, I will leave the tailstock up and turn most of this tenon part away. And then once I get to where I have to take the tailstock in, or away, the double back tape holds it on there just fine. And yes.
When you start your bowl, how much in the bottom do you have to count for the feet?
Oh, okay, the question was, when I make the bottom, how much do I account for my feet? In this case, I try and figure out how far down I need to go. I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch. I know that I measured this ahead of time, and it's about 1/2 an inch. And I want to leave about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to take it down about 1/4, maybe a little bit less. And this is a 3/8 inch bowl gouge, a little smaller. And rather than go this way, I tend to cut the wood off going this way on the bottom. And pull the tool out. Okay? I'm almost. Okay. Move the tool rest so I can go all the way across the bottom. Let's see. Okay, pretty good height. Take that little nub away and then okay, anchor bevel cut, anchor. Make that little cut. Roll the tool open. Come around. Whoops. I got the rush in there. I didn't wait for the wood long enough. And that's why it came out. Okay, I know I need to go deeper. Okay, let's see how close we are. I know I need to go a little more, I can kind of tell. But I would check. Yep, a little more. Okay, and to true this corner up, I would use a scraper. If I brought my small one, which I don't know if I did or not. I ain't gonna worry about it. Yes?
Are you at
That's coming up next. All of my bowls, I do this same thing on all of them. I get to this point here. Okay, if you notice, I turned the bowl the other way, or the direction, and I'm going to cut on this side over here. Why? Because I can see it better. Okay. Now, at this point, I would sand the inside of that. And I would use a little sander versus this big one. And again, this is the same on all of them. It doesn't matter if it's a natural edge, a flat edge, burl, whatever. Okay, the bowl's turning this way. I want a sand going this way. Okay, I'm not going to sand a bunch. Okay, so this, like I said, this is on all of them. And this is where it starts to get fun.
Hey, Pat,
Yes?
so the edge that's left on the bottom of the bowl, that edge right there, is that kind of, you're setting the width of the foot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. This one's fairly thin. Usually they're just a little bit wider. Okay, now is where, I want to make sure, this is where we draw the bullseye. Make sure I'm following my instructions. Okay.
When you had held the little ruler up, you said you were just looking at, were you just checking the width of your?
No, I'm checking how far it is from the foot to the base of the bowl. That distance from there to there. And that's about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, now I'm going to draw the bullseye. It consists of four circles and a point. So might as well start with the point right in the center. Okay, and then line A delineates the intersection of the curve of the bottom and the curve of the foot. Let's see if I can show you. This curve here and this curve here. And it meets right about there. And again, going that way, make sure. Okay. Yeah, close enough. And then the B is this one. And then I put a line about 3/16 of an inch away from that. And that's higher up on the foot.
Are you resting against part of your hand
Am I resting part of my hand on there?
as you draw the circle?
I was, and that kind of what pulled my hand out of the way. Normally I would bring the tool rest around and, get a little more concerned about it. Okay, now that you've got the bullseye drawn, now comes the part that I think is probably one of the more important parts of it, is where to put the feet. You want to put your best foot forward. On some of the pieces, it's going to be obvious. Let me walk through these. Okay, we can come over here. And Ramon, can you pull up let's see. Yeah, pull up the PowerPoint, and we're going to review the types of grain orientation and rim configuration. And I've got it kind of broken down into 5 different kinds. The first kind is in grain. That's where you're turning an in grain bowl like that. That's this one. And these are probably the easiest ones to figure out where to put the foot. Next picture. You turn it around and you look for the most impressive feature on there. This one was obvious. I want the number 1 foot to highlight something on the bottom. That way when you turn the bowl over and look at it, you're going to go, and you're going to find the thing that is the most pleasing for you to look at. And in this case, it was really easy to tell. I knew my number 1 foot was going to go right there, so that the foot and the number and the type of wood would be highlighted by these nice darkness or dark spots. Okay, the second kind, and I'm going to kind of rank these in from the easiest to not as easy. The second easiest one is burl wood. With burls, you just look for, again, the most interesting feature. Burl wood is wood that's grain that's going every which way. So it's going to hold together. So I'm just going to look for the most interesting feature, and then on this one, I liked how the grain was going across this way, so I knew I'd put my number 1 foot right there. And on this one, oh, I can't even see it. Yeah, it was, I just looked at the bottom and found the most unique feature on there. Okay, that's burl wood. The third is flat rim bowls. Don't unplug your thing. What did I do with that flat rim? Oh, I understand. Okay, flat rim bowl. In this case, it was the platter, which I didn't take home. Go ahead and go to the back side. I looked for the most unique feature on the bottom of that one. And in this case, this was all kind of plain down here, and this was all nice ripples, so I knew I'd put my number 1 foot right there. Okay, next. Okay, figure is caused by the disruption of grain. There's grain, which is the annular rings of the tree. Figure almost always runs opposite of the grain of the wood. Okay, next. Okay, so crotch pieces. Okay, if the sapwood runs all the way through it, you want to avoid putting a foot there. If you got good, nice solid wood like these two, and I brought those pieces here. Yeah, that's that one. Over there. Go ahead and go to the back side. So I got, whoop, back up one. So I got nice solid wood all the way through, and I put my foot right in the middle of it. Okay? If like on this one, I think, go ahead and go to the, one more. Okay, if the sapwood from the crotch runs through the center, too far through the center, the sapwood is the weakest part. That's where you're most prone to get a crack. So I try and avoid putting a foot in the sapwood. So in this case, I got a foot here, here, and over here. Just like that. Okay, and then next. Okay, straight grain, natural edge. This is where it gets kind of important on which side you choose, because you can actually pull the visual center of these feet one way or the other depending on where you put the feet. And I'll show you that on an example in a little bit. So this is kind of similar to the one we're going to do. Any questions so far on that? Good. So, to determine where on a straight grain natural edge bowl, I'm going to take it off of here. Okay. Hang on just a second. I'm looking for. I know it ain't in there. I brought a lot of stuff. And I might not have brought that. Huh. I've usually got a thing I can stick in there.
Pad is right on top, is it a wood plug?
Oh, shit. Okay, now we can see it. Okay, what I want to do is figure out, okay, that's the center of the bowl. You divide, if you look at the sketch, you can see I've got a line going through the long points through the center, right from there to there. Okay, so I know I want to put that number 1 foot 90 degrees to that line. I either want to put it here or I want to put it here. Okay, now you just look and see which side looks the best. If there's a unique feature, say there was a knot or something you wanted to highlight with that number 1 foot, you might put it here. In this case, because this dimension from the edge to the foot is shorter on this side than it is on this side, I want to put the number 1 foot on the long side, and I want to put feet 2 and 3 on the short side. What that does is okay, you can kind of see it here. Okay, you can see I put this one's wrong. I put the number 1 foot on the short side. And you can see how the feet kind of look off-center, don't they? Yeah. Why I did that, I don't know. I think, well, I do know. I kind of liked this crooked, let's see if you can see it. Kind of a little crooked edge that I thought was kind of neat. But once I did it, I realized that it's out of balance. So ideally, I would have put the number 1 foot here, and 2 and 3 here and here. And I think you can see, let's see, how much, the center of this one, the center of the blue ones looks like it's way over here. The center of the black ones looks like it's would be right there. So you can visually pull the center, even though you're not changing the center. Visually, your eyes are going to think it's further to one side or the other. Yes, Ed?
So if we go back to where you had those types of pieces now, or you would terminate the center of the skirt for the one you just showed us.
This one?
Yeah, so theoretically, when you set up to find the center of the skirt, you were closer to one end than the other.
Yeah. Yeah, I was.
You did that intentionally?
No, I didn't do it intentionally. When I mounted it, I balanced it this way, and I did have it off a little bit off the center.
It just happened. You just go.
It just happened. Okay, so I'm going to, because this is the closer side, I want 2 and 3 over here. I'm going to put my number 1 foot here. So I'm going to draw a line like I just did. There. That's going to be the number 1 foot. And I'm drawing the center line of it. Okay. And this one, I'm going to put a line going that way because I don't want to use that one. Now, to determine where the foot number 2 and 3 go, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can measure from the center to the edge, 1.3, and you can go 1.3 like that.
And that's on the top edge of
The very bottom of the foot, the top edge of the foot, on the outside edge. You can measure it, or you can use a set of dividers. And do the same thing. Go from there. There. Okay, now I make my feet twice as wide as they are thick. And I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use, crap, I went the wrong way. What did I do? Yeah, I used the wrong one. Okay, you come off this. This is the number 1 foot. These are, I messed up. You come off of the, I think I call it point X on my sketch.
Yes.
Yeah, point X. Now I could also have gone, here, and then come over and just gone around like that, but I like doing it that way, the other way. So we've got foot 1, 2, 3. They're going to be twice as wide as they are thick. And, okay, I learned this next thing from Molly Winton. Molly Winton says she couldn't draw, but she could make one thing, make one line and make another line and another line. I don't know how to draw, so I just need to make one line. And what I do is I just take my pen, kind of figure out, okay, if I swing an arc from this point down to that line, I don't change the pencil at all. I come over to the next one. Okay, still holding onto the pencil. Go to the other side. The other side. The other side. Now, these feet should be about the same width as here. And they're a little smaller. And that changes on the size of the bowl too. But that's close enough. Now, I also put a little line on the inside, just for a visual reference, that I don't want to take that wood away. Now that kind of matches your sketch, doesn't it? Okay. Now comes the point where, what did I do with my grinder? There we go. Now I got to take that waste wood away. How do I do that? I have a die grinder. And I'm just going to barely do any.
So what size die grinder
So it's like about,
It's a Makita,
no, the size of the,
1/4 inch, and this is, I think, 3/4. And it's fairly fine tooth. I bought it at Woodworker Wonders, or I bought it down at Raleigh.
The saber-tooth burr, right?
Yeah, that's the name of it. I'm not going to do much grinding, but you can see you just grind away. In fact, I've got some sample bowls.
Do you let that be the radius? For that inch?
The question was, do I let the burr determine the radius? No. I try and follow the line. And this is the steps I go through. I'm going to give you that one. We'll start way back here with that one. Now, I start with the rotary file, burr, whatever you want to call it. I get almost all of this away, down to that first line. Once I've done that in all 3 spots, then I'll come back and I'll go down and I'll get it almost to the next line with the die grinder. And then I switch over to some high quality Japanese Owaski, I think is the name of them. It's listed in my resources. Super sharp. They really cut nice. And I will, take it right down to where this is, you can run your fingers across there and it's a nice consistent curve. Okay? And then I'll take my sander and lightly sand the inside of the foot. And I'll sand right up to the line. And I think as that goes around, I've got each one of them marked, rotary file, files, and then sanding. So that's how I do that portion of it.
so Pat,
Yes.
when you're doing the filing, you make that smooth transition from line B to line A, so it's just
I take it down to line B and line A. I get it a nice smooth. When you're done, you should be able to have a nice smooth arc that goes all the way through the bottom of the bowl in 3 spots. Here, let's see, here, here, and here. Okay? And if I'm not sure if I like the shape or not, I have a pin gauge. Get on there. And let's see, on the center line, you can kind of see up here that this line here and this line here, they match up fairly close. So I'm pretty happy with that curve. It might be off a little bit, but that's one way to tell. Any questions on that?
That tool, if you did not know, is called a contour gauge.
Contour gauge, pin gauge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next way. Okay, next, let's see. I'll make sure I cover everything here. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Okay, now, let's see. Okay, let's imagine we got this all nice and sanded and the feet are cut into it and we're all real happy with it. And you got 3 feet sticking up there, but you want to flatten the feet. How would you do that? Let's see. Okay, so you like this, I got a nice curve through there. Oh boy, that's hard to see.
There.
There. So I've got a good curve here, everything's nice and smooth, but my feet they might be a little bit off. How am I going to flatten that? The way I do that, and bear with me while I clean my stuff up here. Okay, when you make a tenon and you take it off, before you take it off, mark in between your number 1 and your number 4 jaws. That way when you put it back on there, if you put it back in the same spot, chances are it'll be almost perfect or almost dead on. If you move it, it might change a little bit, or if you don't get it in there all the way. So that's why I always mark in between the number 1 and the number 4 jaws. And on one-way chucks, the jaws are numbered. Where the jaws go are numbered. I mark each jaw to match, I don't know if you can see it. See, I've got 4 lines on there. That's the number 4 jaw. I put the number 4 jaw back there every time. And I have flattened the faces, so that I get a good, nice, flat surface. And how I do that is by using a faceplate in my tailstock. Okay, 1, 4. And one of the reasons I do that is I want that surface to be nice and flat. That way the bowl will sit on it, and you'll get, you won't wear off one side of it, of the finish more than the other side. If these feet weren't flat, say they were angled, in, it would only be sitting on the very outside edge, and you'll wear that finish away really fast. The more surface area contact you have, the longer the finish on the bottom of the feet will last. So, I've got that, and I have this. It's a flat piece of wood with a handle on it. I use double back tape. On here you could use spray-on adhesive, 320 sandpaper. I bring it up, snug it up, back it off just a little bit, turn it on so it's going this way, so it tightens it, not loosens it. And just barely turn it on. Hold the thing. Okay, did you see how it kind of jumped? That's because there was more pressure on one foot. One foot was maybe a little bit longer. But eventually, it just sands them both, or sands all 3 of them flat. Back it off. Look at it. Come on. That foot's a little bit bigger, but it's nice and flat. And they're pretty close to the same. So that's how I flatten the bottoms of the feet. Okay?
What grit of sandpaper do you have?
That is, the question was what grit of sandpaper was that? 320. You could use, 400, but if you get too fine, you're gonna have to press a little harder to take the wood off, and you might burn the wood, get a little scorch on it, or you're gonna burn the sandpaper. So I use 320 with just a little bit of light pressure, just take a little bit off, check it, take a little more off. Okay, now that we got the feet all flat, this thing is ready to take off there and finish. And I think that's something that people were wondering, how does Pat get his finish? Because that's, my finishes are pretty nice. What did I do with it? Where'd it go? Can't find it. Where's the other? Okay, what did I do with it? I'm looking for my other check key. I just had it. No, that's the big one. Is it? I don't see it. Nope. This one will work. It's not the right one, but. The question was, okay, this 1 foot is a little bit wider. Would I go back in and trim it up a little bit more? If I was going to sell the bowl, yes, I would. I would try and make it perfect. This one I'm going to give away, so no. And this is just a demo piece anyway. So, okay, now. Say again?
How do you decide on the size of your original foot when initially turning the bowl?
Okay, the rule of thumb is the foot should be anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of the width of the bowl. Now that's on a round, completely round bowl. On a natural edge bowl, you're going to go, I usually go about 1/3 of the narrow width, maybe a little bit more. So like, where's that? Say again? The width versus the length. So I would, like these are about 1/3 of the width of the bowl here. Obviously not here. But if it was a round bowl like this one, I would go about 1/3 of the overall width, 1/3 to 1/4. The wider the feet are, the more utilitarian the bowl is. The narrower and taller the feet are, the more artsy it is. It depends on what you want. Do you want the bowl to be used, or do you just want it to sit on a shelf and be admired? I want my bowls to be used. So I tend to go a little bit wider. Yes. If it's, but something that you've got 1/4 of the width on, chances are it's going to be more of an art piece than a functional utilitarian using piece. Like this, as pretty as this piece is, it ain't real usable, other than maybe a few little things in the middle. But it's always going to, if it's like an egg or a rock or something, it's going to run down to the bottom. So it'll be okay. But on a bowl that you want to use, yeah, I would stay probably 1/3 of the width. Any questions on that? Anybody got any suggestions, or do they kind of go by that rule of thumb? Jeff, you looked like you were going to say something. Okay. Okay, so now that we've got it all sanded, the foot cut, and we're ready to put finish on it. How do I do it? Okay, as you all know, or most of you know, I use Minwax Wipe-On Poly. And it's both good and bad. The good part is it's available in a lot of places. Ah, dang it. So there it is, Minwax Wipe-On Poly. Now, unfortunately, you won't be able to find this in the store anymore. Now it says Wipe-On Poly fast drying right here. I've tried it, I can't get it to work. So I was online today. How do you make your own Wipe-On Poly non-fast drying? They say you can take the fast drying stuff and cut it with mineral spirits 1:1. And it will take the fast drying and slow it down, thin it down, and make it more like the regular wipe-on poly. Okay, so the way I do that, I heat this stuff up. That's what you saw here. I use hot water. I've got a fill line right there. I fill it up. I use 2 things of Keurig hot water, fill it up, put the finish in there. I let it sit for a few minutes, warm my finish up just a little bit. That way it flows a little better. Okay, the first coat that I do it a little bit differently. And I do wear gloves. And I would recommend that you wear gloves just because it makes it a lot easier to clean your hands. Any questions on this part so far? And if my hands weren't so sweaty, I could probably not be like OJ and get... What? Hey, the glove fits. You must have quit. Okay. Man. And these are 2XL. I do have big hands, but come on.
So you're just a small guy.
Huh?
You're just a small guy.
I'm just a swollen guy. Okay.
What's your little white board there?
Pardon?
Your tray.
Oh, this is a really cool tray that Mike Poirier made for the club. Thank you, Mike. Where are you? There he is. What'd you make that out of, Mike?
Not sure.
UHMW?
Yeah.
Ultra high weight molecular nylon or something like that?
It's a dumpster diving.
Wow, nice dumpster.
No, I know.
Okay, I got to dry that water off. Hang on. Okay, what I do on my first coat is I take a plastic bag, at the last meeting when I demonstrated this, I had a real nice piece of burl, nice sharp points all around it. I carried it in this bag and I had poked a bunch of holes into it so that when I took my finish, I put the bowl in the bag, like that, and I get as much air out of it as I can. And I will put it in there and rub it all around until I get it all completely coated. And I will rub it and do this, play with it. I don't want to, I'll fondle it, whatever you want to call it, for 2 or 3 minutes, just so it soaks in as much finish as it can get. And if it's punky wood, man, it'll suck finish in like nobody's business. But you can see it's got almost all of it. I got a little bit right there. It's almost used up all that finish already. Anybody else do it like this? No. You will now. Maybe. Okay.
Why don't you wipe it on like it says, just wipe on?
Because I want to be able to leave it in there for a few minutes. What you don't want to do, I did a demonstration down at the Olympia Club, and when I was in Portland at the symposium, the guy came up and he said, "Hey, I tried your finish technique and it didn't work for me." I said, "Well, how long did you leave it in the bag?" He said, "Well, 2 days." I I said, well, that's about, almost 2 days too long. So I leave it in there maybe 4 or 5 minutes. I'll pull it out and I'll look and I'll see if I've got good, solid finish everywhere. Any dry spots? If I got a dry spot or where it sucks it all up, I'll put more in, do the same thing. And once I'm happy with how much finish is on it, I will, like he said, wipe it off. That much.
So that you kind of skip on it when you put it in at first, so you don't overuse?
No.
You don't use?
No, I actually want some left over.
Okay.
And once I'm happy with, what it's looking like, I'll wipe the finish off. I'll get almost all of it off. And then I'll let it dry. That's got finish on it, just the color of the wood. So then I'll wipe it all off. I'll let it dry for a day. Then I will take it, sand it, use a paper towel with mineral spirits on it, and wipe the dust off of it, let it dry for 8 hours. Then I'll go and I'll put finish on this side. I set it on some paper, toilet paper roll, holds it up. I put finish on it. Take it off, let it dry, turn it over, put finish on this side, let it dry, then I'll take and I'll wet sand both sides. I'll let it dry for a day because you don't want any moisture or humidity on the surface. What time is it? 10 to 9. Okay, I'm almost done. Yes? I sand my wood to 400 grit, okay? And then for my next coat, I'm sorry, what was that?
After you put the first coat of finish on.
Yeah, 400. And then once I get a complete coat over the whole thing and it doesn't have any dry spots, I'll start working up to 600, 1,000. At the very end, I'll go 2,000 grit. Okay, I'm running a little shorter time. The last thing I'm going to show you is how I sign my bowls. It's really simple.
Yeah, before you do that, can I add one thing?
Yes.
When Michael Dresner was here talking about finishes, he said that the difference between white bond poly and the regular oil-based poly is that it's already diluted. And the recommended method for making your own white bond poly is start with the regular poly and then dilute it 1-to-1 with the mineral spirits, just like you said.
Okay, but if you can't find any regular white bond poly,
No, not regular white bond poly, regular polyethylene.
oh, okay.
Just a regular quart size and mix it 1-to-1. The other thing I recommend is there's a thing out there called stop loss bags. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you can put your finish in that, express all the air out of it, and it doesn't go bad on you. I never used a can of poly and got all the way to the bottom of it before I started doing it.
Okay, this bowl is done. I'm happy with the finish. Now I got to sign it. And if you guys looked at the bottom of my bowls, I put my name, the year, the number of bowl, and the type of wood. And I have a electric engraver, and I have a I think it's 0.5 micro pen, felt pen.
Is it archival?
Say again,
Does it
please.
say it's archival?
Archival?
Archival pen.
Yes, archival ink. Okay, now I know on this one, let's see, can you, give me that. Okay. On this one, that's the number 1 foot. I liked how this stuff ran into it, so I'm going to put my number 1 foot right there. On my number 1 foot, I put the number of the bowl and the type of wood. This is bowl number 435, and it's maple. And got a little sloppy there, but okay. Once I've got the number and the type of wood, I put my name over here and I put the year here. Some people don't want to put the year. If you're really good, like a Dave Best or John Howard or a few of the others in here, you might not want to put the year that you made it in. The reason being is, say you have it in a gallery and it's sat in at your house, you enjoyed it for 2 years. You take it to the gallery to sell, somebody picks it up and looks at it and goes, why is this a 2-year-old bowl? Why hasn't it sold? If you have a code, you know, they won't be able to understand what the code is, so it could be a 10-year-old bowl. But I'm not so worried that, you know, my stuff doesn't sell in a gallery. So I'm going to go ahead and just put the year, 2024, or I'm going to put the bowl, the type of wood, my name, and then the year. Then I'm going to take one more coat of finish and seal the ink in, and then I'm done. So, any questions? Okay, you're more than welcome to come up and look at my stuff. If we had more time, I'd go over a few more errors, but I think you guys can understand how I do it. If we don't have any questions, I guess that's it. All right.